Welcome to the 9 News Business Buzz. I'm Ryan Fraser, 9 News business expert, and today we're taking the pulse of one of Colorado's biggest economic challenges, housing. Nationally, affordability is a top concern, but here in Colorado, the story is even sharper. A statewide shortage of more than 100,000 homes and a Denver area median price hovering around $650,000. That's a serious headwind for many families and for employers trying to hire and grow as we head into 2026. To unpack what's driving this, innovative responses to big issues, I'm joined by Ed Sealover with the Colorado Chamber of Commerce and the editor of the Sum and Substance. Ed, how's it going?
Going great. Check out tsscolorado.com to see all the business news that's going on out there.
Ed, the state has invested over $1 billion in housing programs since 2020, but clearly government alone can't solve this. From the Chamber's perspective, this remains a top-tier issue for your members. Now, you're in touch with the business community every day. What's the biggest shift you're seeing in how private employers are stepping up to address the housing shortage in ways perhaps we haven't seen before?
I think two answers to that, Ryan. First of all, private employers are kind of stepping up now and weighing in more on this. This has become such a big issue because private employers are having a hard time finding ways to recruit and retain employees when they're not able to bring them in. When you've got someone coming in from a state where the cost of living, cost of housing is much cheaper, they're thinking twice about taking that job with you, and that's why private employers are getting involved. But you're seeing, and I think we'll talk about some of the policy ways that they're getting involved here, you're also seeing direct action being taken. A company like Climax Molybdenum, they're a mining company up in the Leadville area. They have actually started both renovating and renting out houses for their employees and actually going in and helping to fund the construction of apartments that can be used for their employees. That's how important it is when you're putting those kind of resources into making sure not just that you're getting the right employees, but keeping the right employees. And they've seen a high turnover in part because of the housing costs up there. That's what you're seeing private employers do that 5 years ago might have been unthinkable.
It's really fascinating to think about this because, I think it's definitely a sign of the times. It says clearly that it's become that important that employers are saying we got to do more. So how common is this becoming? Are more Colorado employers realizing that housing is now part of doing business and essential for attracting and retaining the workforce?
Yeah, I mean, not just private sector, but public sector employers too. You're talking about someone like CDOT, who is taking some of its land and it's building apartments on there for some of its high country employees so they don't have to search around for housing. We at the Chamber of Commerce last week held an affordable housing roundtable, and that's a subject that, again, I don't think a lot of business groups were involved in 4 years ago. And we held it because so many employers are saying, how do we make a difference now? What are the good ideas that are working out there? I think we've seen a lot of discussion about the government's role in this and the state government versus the local government in trying to push affordable housing. But we're not seeing as many talks right now about, well, what can employers do? So I think that's how even the ability to bring people in for a roundtable like this talks very well about how important this is and the steps employers want to take.
And it's not just who's building, it's how. We're seeing a rise in modular and factory-built housing projects like the new community near the Stanley Marketplace in Central Park and Aurora, and deeper partnerships between developers and local governments. Talk to us a little bit more about those conversations that came out of this recent event you all held around affordable housing.
Hey, Adam Berger, who's a developer, said that he had put up modular housing outside the Stanley Marketplace. And I think when some people think modular housing, they think trailer homes, but that's not the case. This is housing that is just built in the factory and is moved very quickly into place. He said it was only 4 months from groundbreaking to certificate of occupancy out there. And I think those are the kind of partnerships that you're seeing employers looking at now. How can I get my employees into something like this? How can, as a builder, how can I use the state's new push for modular housing? And just last year, the state pushed through kind of statewide parameters for what modular housing could look like to make it easier for people to build in every community across the state. How is that going to work? But it's not just about this new kind of housing. It's also about how builders are working more closely with public partnerships. Other builders have said, look, we're working with local school districts, with local fire districts who need this housing for their employees. And we are putting up communities in ways we weren't before, taking advantage of tax credits, taking advantage of government financing to really bring about some of this affordable housing. And I think you're going to see more and more of those partnerships moving forward. How is it that in instead of just building housing and saying, okay, who's going to come here? You now build housing for a specific purpose, like working with a local government to make sure their employees have homes.
Yeah, now in your view, how much can innovations like modular construction and public-private collaboration really bend the cost curve, Ed? I mean, make a significant, meaningful dent in that 106,000 unit gap that we have today?
There are a lot of ways that the cost curve needs to be bent, Ryan. And a lot of it is something we talk about at the Colorado Chamber all the time is you need to look as well at the regulations around housing. What are you requiring builders to do that takes away from the ability to be affordable? Some of the new green housing mandates, for example, are adding costs onto this too. So it's not just a matter of, okay, how does modular housing work? How does partnerships work? It's also a matter of what are we requiring of builders that is going to slow the process and make the process more expensive. And then there's just the kind of wild card that you throw in there. Where are we going to find our construction workforce? I think that we need to talk more about getting students into the trades because there is a shortage of construction workers in this state. And if there's a shortage of construction workers, you're never going to be able to build your way out of this. Yeah. And so all of these together are what needs to be addressed.
You mentioned earlier about how, some cities are helping to fast track approvals, which, 4 months is, haven't heard that in a long time. Usually you're talking, if you're lucky, a year or more. But, some cities are like within the cities, like the Arvada Chamber of Commerce. One of your members is even training local businesses to show up to public hearings to advocate for new housing. How important is this kind of unified business voice in zoning and permitting battles, which often make or break these projects?
Well, anybody who watched last week's election knows that zoning issues are suddenly at the forefront. Littleton passed a law that basically made it harder to change zoning to get more dense housing in there. There are a lot of very legitimate concerns that people have out there about the building, how much building is going on. But businesses need to explain, look, if we can't build, we can't hire, and that includes your kids and you as well. We need to find some way to advocate for more housing. That's what groups like the Arvada Chamber are doing.
Ed, in the few seconds we have left, as we look to 2026, any barrier you think will stand in the way of these partnerships and moving this faster?
No, I mean, I think we've got to talk about getting government out of the way in some ways and getting education more involved. Those are the two big things.
Ed, we got to wrap. I want to thank you for sharing the Chamber of Commerce of Colorado's Chamber of Commerce's perspective on how Colorado business community is tackling the housing challenges head on. This could be a pivotal moment for our economy. The Business Buzz is back during the 11 a.m. hour with a look at another critical investment in Colorado's future workforce. So stay informed, be engaged, and get ahead of the game. For the 9 News Business Buzz, for Ed Sealover, I'm Ryan Fraser. We'll see you soon.